I take my dog for a walk every morning, and there's a street a couple blocks over from where I am. And as I walk, I have been noticing for the last few weeks, there's a tree, and high up in the tree, uh, in a branch, there's a blue plastic bag. And, you know, it's kind of sad to see plastic in trees. They break down and they get into the environment. It's kind of, it's hard. It's almost impossible to get up there at this time of the year and get the bag. But this bag, I watch it every morning. And the interesting thing is the shapes it takes. Prince Edward Island in the winter is a very windy place. Strong, strong winds. Um, there's almost never a time when there's not a breeze blowing, and a stiff breeze particular is very common on PEI. And how they measure a stiff breeze is at the weather station is on the side of the building. There's a metal chain, and when the chain is sticking straight out, that's a stiff breeze. Or so the famous Lorne Elliott joke goes. And that is pretty much true. And what I've noticed about the bag, like I walk by and I look up, I look and I find myself searching for it every day, and there it is. Are the shapes it takes as it moves. It's moving through the tree. It's not being blown out of the tree, but sometimes it's hanging downwards more, and sometimes it's tangled up, sticking straight out, and it's sort of alive in this tree. Uh, and I'm an artist also, and so I'm always looking for inspiration, and I tend to probably lean towards the fanciful or surrealist with my work. Some people might say I'm a primitive or a folk artist, or somewhat of a stylized painter and drawer. And when I see something like a plastic bag in a tree, it kind of inspires my work. I have used that image before, and I'll use it again. And I'm starting a little painting. What I'm using here is Arches watercolor paper, but it's hot pressed, so it's very, very smooth paper. And I've started off with a pencil sketch, just quickly drew in what I want. And I'm using a fountain pen to outline my pencil sketch. And what I will be using after I've drawn everything in, I will start painting with acrylics. I put down thin layers of acrylic to block all the colors in, get myself a ground, so to speak, and then I start building color up. I'll use color pencil. I'll use, of course, fountain pens, and I will use watercolor, and I'll use gouache and acrylic, of course. And sometimes when I'm using acrylic, I will take sandpaper and sand the paper down a bit, just to get rid of any textures. I like it fairly smooth, and I really like working with Arches watercolor paper. It's one of my favorite. I have, if I'm using watercolor, I would tend to use cold pressed, which is a very rough paper. And what I'm using in this fountain pen, it's a TWSBI Eco. I'm using an ink that I find very good for doing artwork. It's a very stable ink, and that's platinum carbon black. I can go over this with watercolor. I can go over this with acrylics, and it's not going to run. It won't lift. Now, of course, as I build up the acrylics over this painting that I'm drawing in, the line work that I'm doing will, in some cases, disappear. But as I build my layers, as I build the layers of the painting, I will add more fountain pen into it and more line work. I'll also add pencil. So I tend to use a mixed media approach to what I'm doing. Um, and I'm not too sure what this painting means yet. I don't know precisely what it's about, other than the fact that I'm inspired by a plastic bag and a tree. Uh, it almost has a childlike quality to me in some ways. The rough illustration that I've put in here. Maybe that's maybe that's what it's about, like a childlike sense of wonder at the world, and also a childlike sadness that only kids can have sometimes with when they see how messed up things get. And I have two kids, and they're often concerned about what's going on, and you know, climate change is very real to them. It's, they and they talk about it, and they try to do what they can. And I think we all should try to do what we can, but I don't think we're doing enough. And anyway, but that's what painting is about. Sometimes you just sit down and you make a story. And I'm just drawing in what's going to eventually be the plastic bag. It'll be blue. This is it here, this shape up here. And, complementing the branches and trying to make it look, graceful at the same time and beautiful, even though it's a plastic bag that's falling apart and being scattered across the neighborhood. But that's what happens. And if you see a plastic bag on the ground, please pick it up. I'm going to try to pick up the next one I see. One great thing about Prince Edward Island is we have done things to improve the environment. There is a plastic bag ban, so you go to a grocery store, you can use paper or reusable bags, but just disposable plastic bags are no longer allowed. And that's been great, because I've noticed that every week when I take my recycling to the recycling depot, I have very few bags anymore. I used to have a couple of blue bags full of just plastic bags, and now I don't. And I'm very happy for that. And, that's what goes on. So anyway, probably what I'll do after I draw all this in, I most likely will say paint it all one wash of acrylic. Sometimes sometimes each painting is slightly different. I tend to, use red or a blue or a yellow when I'm doing a ground, when I paint everything. And I think on this one, to set the mood, I'm going to paint it blue. And as the colors go up, as I build up the colors and I paint over that blue ground, they'll sort of have a muted feel to them, kind of a moody look. They'll be sort of somber. And after I get to a certain point, I'll probably finish with gouache, just for details and patterns. I draw a lot of pattern work into my paintings, and that'll come later, And I'm always sort of observing fabrics and different design work or things like that. The man is almost oblivious to what's going on above him, and I think he's probably going to be sort of wearing a business shirt and a tie. I never wear a tie myself. I'm against them. And but I'm going to have this man dressed rather formal, wearing a tie. I might put a suit jacket on him too, and he'll be sort of just walking through. And that's not really a comment about the business world or anything like that. It's just I want him to be very formal in some ways. It's not a comment about anything like that. But I sometimes like painting people wearing suits. It offers me another opportunity to put some kind of pattern into the painting. It could be like a herringbone or a check suit or something like that. But I'll play with that as I go. It could be like almost a very loud sports jacket or something like that. But I'll think about that as I paint. And his hair is almost a very, punk style hair in some ways. Maybe I'll play with that, or maybe it'll just be like a buzz cut style haircut. But that's what'll happen. So yeah, so as this goes up, more and more colors and patterns will build, and I'll add other layers of fountain pens into it, of course. And I just thought I'd like to do a little video showing my process and how it gets started and what it's all about. Actually, you know what? Maybe he'll be wearing a sweater, like a cardigan or something like that. That'd be fun. You never see anybody walking around with a cardigan and a sweater. I mean, a cardigan and a tie. Yeah. So anyway, I hope you're having a great day. And thanks for watching this video. And if you liked it, give it a thumbs up. And if you would kindly subscribe, I'd deeply appreciate that. It's fun watching the channel grow. And if you have any comments, I'd like to hear from you, and I'm always happy to answer. So thank you very much, and talk to you soon. Bye-bye.